I'm Bob Zimmer, Member of Parliament, today talking to you once again about the ever-increasing critical situation in the BC public fishery. The Minister continues to delay an opening in the public fishery. Let's hear from members of the BC fishing community on what will happen if she continues to delay her decision.
Well, Bob, it's crippling. You're going to talk to people today who depend on it for their livelihood. I can tell you unequivocally that if I was still in the business, it would be very, very difficult to proceed.
Right.
There are fish out here to catch. Right across over there, you've got Washington State, that whole line of mountain ranges.
Right.
They faced this problem 10 years ago and they decided to take it head on with a combination of restoration, enhancement, and protecting their fisheries.
Right.
So they're presently producing 80 million Chinook salmon in Washington State that have their adipose fin clipped so that anglers can identify them from the wild stocks.
Right.
So what we're trying to get here is a very similar program that they have in Washington State. We would like to be able to retain hatchery fish. That sustains the fishery. It protects the wild fish because we were letting them go, and anglers have an incentive to go out and fish.
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing right now is the uncertainty. We know that there's good data-driven proposals that can provide us with a sustainable, next few years. But the reality is, from an income and a family perspective, there's a ton of uncertainty.
Yeah, and I think continuing to fight for the rights of public fisheries is extremely important.
The minister needs to stop listening to the bureaucrats in the agency and start listening to the people that are on the water and the people that understand the fishery and the resource, the people that are willing to be engaged and do something about it. And it needs to be more than virtue signaling. It needs to be a serious, sincere effort where there's a conversation and the people in BC that recognize what the problems are and understand the resource. That's who the minister should be listening to. And there also needs to be some serious budget components in the federal budget that support these initiatives.
I am very concerned that there seems to be this push away from the public fishery. There's a lack of understanding. There's a lack of respect for it. At the end of the day, I truly believe that if we just continue to reduce and shut down and close fisheries without throwing that lifeline out there to them so that they can exist for the future, it would be a serious mistake, a huge step backwards. And I think at the end of the day, it's the beginning of the end. And
Right.
We need the Department of Fisheries and Oceans to engage in a real comprehensive recovery program. It requires people, money, and resources to be put into making sure those wild fish have every chance possible with all of the difficulties like climate change, etc. going on. We want that.
Right.
But we also need to be able to have the recreational fishery, the people in the public fishery, have an opportunity to keep that fishery alive during that time of recovery.
Well, essentially for ever since about 1995, there have been a series of significant cuts in DFO funding, for example, here on the West Coast. And so functions that were done by the department have been basically, the volunteer base takes care of it.
Right.
And just when they're trying to make progress, more barriers are put in place either from regulation or cost that precludes them from carrying out what had been done previously as a all-hands-on-deck volunteer effort.
But also part of that is the advocacy for who we are, telling the public about our fishery, educating people about what it is that we do, and also being able to talk to government and say, look, do whatever you can to protect this. This is a very special, unique fishery.
Right.
I think it's about getting a message out there that all this matters. It's not just one voice that matters, it's a united front. Trying to get a unified group of us together to understand that we all need to share in the environmental stewardship moving forward.
Like so many British Columbians, some of my favorite memories are fishing with my family. If you believe the minister needs to start listening to the concerns of our BC fishing families and communities, I encourage you to call her at her office at 902-527-5655 or send an email to bernadette.jordan@parl.gc.ca. We must ensure that our children and our grandchildren have the opportunity to enjoy the great outdoors and participate in an angling tradition that has been a proud way of life for generations.